Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and we know what? He's back! Yes, he is. So we are doing a first on this show. It's so exciting. Let me tell you what. We have brought guests back before, right? We've done that on this show, right? But we've never brought them back to back, ever, until today. And today we have Paul Furiga coming back with his book, Finding Your Capital S Story, Why Your Story Drives Your Brand. And let me tell you why this is so special, because here's what he's going to do today. We've talked about the theoretical aspects of, we talked about the research, we've talked about all the pieces. You know what he's going to do today? Help you craft your story. What? Yeah. Isn't it exciting? It's so exciting to me, because not only we can do that, we're also going to talk about, if you're B2B or B2C, and you're a product or a service. Well, he asked the question, do you think there should be a difference in how you tell your story? The answer is just yes. But we're going to get to that. But before we get to him, and it's going to be awesome, let's do what we do every week, right? 4 areas of your life: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. That's how we're made up. All right. And we're going to check in with you on your training. We want to know, how's that training going from last week to this week, right? And you go, I'm new to this, Jay. And by the way, I just want to say to everybody all over the world, holy cow, you guys downloaded this show last month. Holy cow. I just want to say thank you. I am in such gratitude for you people telling your friends, maybe some of your enemies, to download the show. I am so happy. I just want to say thank you before we do that. Because you guys really came through this month. Unbelievable. So thank you all over the world. So let's talk about these 4 areas, like physically, right? So are you getting enough exercise? Are you getting enough sleep, drinking enough water? Are you eating right? Right? Types of things that you could put into your body. On a scale of 1 to 10, if you were to rate yourself, 1 being, it's not good, Jay, 10 being, oh man, it can't just get any better. How would you give yourself? 5's average, right? That's your first number. Now, the point is here, listen, if you're a 3, okay, that's just where we start. That's your starting number. We could do something about that today, right? We can change what we're going to eat. You're going to have a meal, or you're going to have a snack. Well, we can eat a healthier snack. We can eat a healthier meal. Maybe it doesn't have to be as big, right? Maybe we go to bed a little earlier. Maybe we pick up that bottle of water instead of a bottle of soda or something else. Right. Maybe we go out and we take a walk, or maybe, right after the show, you're going out and taking a walk, or maybe you're taking a walk with me on the show. Good for you. Right. Whatever that is. Right. That's your number. All right. Second number is the mental number. Right. My wife says, don't be a mental loafer. Don't sit on the couch and let things come at you. Get active in your learning. Get active in your knowledge and your understanding. Can you grow in your business? Can you grow in your knowledge of your business? Can you grow in the knowledge of your marketing, like you're doing right now? Right? Can you grow in your understanding of how things work around you? Right? That's taking an active part of your growth mentally, right? Because we all know, if we're not growing, we're dying. The truth of the matter is, we do not stay the same. If we are not actively growing in these areas, we're falling behind. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say your mental growth is? Right? 2 numbers. Third number, emotional. And the emotional, we make it really easy on the show emotionally, right? It's like, the first part is, how well are you able to control your emotions under stress, under pressure? Have you ever been hangry? You know what hangry is, right? When you're hungry and you start to feel that angry, can you control that when you're hungry? That's a question, right? Boy, that's a good one, isn't it? Right? But that's part of controlling our emotions under stress and pressure, right? And then the second part is, how well can you tap into and understand the emotions of others? One of the things that Paul says so clearly in this book, called Finding Your Capital S Story, is, if you really understand your audience, and that really means understanding the emotional aspects of your audience, by the way, you're going to connect with them on a level that you've never even can connect in any other way in your marketing. Right. And because so often we just keep throwing things out there, like, boiling spaghetti and throwing it against the wall and hoping that your marketing sticks. But if we make an emotional effort to connect with people, that runs on a deeper level. He's going to talk about that today. So on those 2 areas, right, connecting, really understanding the emotions of others and controlling your emotions, how would you say you're doing on a scale of 1 to 10? All right. And then finally, the spiritual aspect. And it's really clear. If you remove the physical, mental, and emotional, what you have left is really the spiritual. Right. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I was speaking to someone the other day, and we were talking, and They said, I don't know if I can get into the spiritual thing. And I said, you know what? Here's the deal. The fact of the matter is we all have faith. We live by faith every day. You wake up not knowing how your day is going to go, but you live by faith, knowing that my day is going to go a particular way. And if it doesn't, you still keep going. Why? Why do you keep going? If you don't have faith in yourself and faith in the day, then why should you keep going? It's because you have faith. It's what keeps you driving. You believe that something better is going to happen. That's faith. And then the other part of the spiritual aspect is what brings you to center in the midst of chaos? Is it God? Is it nature? Is it meditation? What is it? Right? And is it working? And if it's not, what do you got to do to change it? Right? So you have 4 numbers. Those 4 numbers are like the legs of a chair. If the legs of the chair are uneven, bad posture when we're sitting in there, right? Same token, if the legs are all up on the same height, then they're connecting up to that. We get to eat at a normal table and eat nutritiously, which is what my friend, and I get to call him friend, and it's pretty cool. I can be really honest with you. I get to call this man my friend. And his name is Paul Furiga, and he is the president. He's the CEO. He is the founder and the chief storyteller of WordWrite, which is a perennial top-ranked PR firm, basically. And Paul's passion for storytelling has inspired him to form WordWrite and to focus on developing the concept of the capital S in the story. The story above all others that explains why someone would work for an organization like yours, buy from it, and partner with it or invest it. He was previously vice president at Ketchum Public Relations. He served clients with like Alcoa, Bridgestone, Firestone, Rutgers. He spent time as a journalist, and he currently resides in the Pittsburgh area with his wife, Brenda, who is also his partner at WordWrite. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show again, Paul Furiga. Welcome, Paul.
Geez, Jay, thanks, man. What a great introduction. And I didn't realize that by being back for a second week, or a second episode, that I am the first ever back-to-back repeat. Thank you for that honor, my friend.
Yeah, this is so cool. I'm so excited. And here's also what's cool, right? This show, for everybody who's listening, right? This show not only is live out on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitch and Twitter, and then of course Castbox FM and hi Masai, and everybody else who's listening. But then this show goes to the radio coast to coast, and is also in Dublin, Ireland, and then it goes to the Philippines. But now this show, if you have a Roku device or you have a Amazon Fire device,
Fire Stick,
this show is live on DBNA TV. And so they're going to get to see, this is one of the first shows that is going to go back to back on DBNA TV app on Roku and Fire Stick. And so this is kind of exciting. So we're very excited to have you on and doing this, because this is the first, and I'm enjoying it. So let's dig right in, because last week we got into chapter 6, and it was really, chapter 6 is about, basically crafting our story, how to uncover your capital S story with story crafting. And we talked about some basic principles of story crafting, and we talked about it being unique, authentic, driven by a story archetype, and story anchors, comprehensive, collaborative. And then we got into phase 1, and we just got into the 5 burning questions that you covered.
Right.
What is your organization's purpose? What is the market demand for what you do? What competitive position distinguishes you from your competitors, etc. Right. But then there's a kind of a second part to phase 1, right?
Yes.
You talk about something like a complete audit of all current or recent marketing materials and activities. And then you talk about a thorough secondary research review of all marketing research. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of times we do things just because we do them. And this is as true in organizations as it is for individual people. And so before you can really go out and share your most important story, we need to know, what kind of story am I already sharing? And where am I sharing it? And critically important, how well is that going? Am I getting the results I want? Am I getting any results at all? And then you want to benchmark that against what everybody else is doing. Because for most of us, whatever it is we're doing, we might be running a nonprofit, we might be running a for-profit business, there is somebody competing for the attention, Jay, are the people that we really need to reach.
Mm.
So who are those people, those organizations? What are they saying? What are they doing? Because our opportunity lies not in trying to shout over the other organizations or people who are trying to reach the people that we most want to reach. It lies in identifying the gaps. Where are the opportunities? So that's why it's so critically important to understand, what are you already doing or saying in terms of sharing your story? And what is everybody else who's competing for the attention of the people you want to reach doing or saying to try and reach them?
Mm, got it. So does this, then you talk about the pillars that support
Yes.
capital S story. So I'm assuming then, if I got this right, that the pillars kind of are those things. Would you call them like kind of like the basic foundational questions we need to ask as part of that? Is that what the pillars
Yeah,
are?
it would be right, Jay. And it's the answers. We have a term which I use in the book. We call them the story fundamentals,
Mhm.
right? So the two things we just talked about, what are you doing to share your story? What is everybody else doing? That's your raw material to the story fundamentals that
Yeah.
allow you to put together your unique, compelling, and memorable story in a way that's going to be seen and heard and experienced by the people you most want to reach. And not only are they going to see it or hear it or experience it, they're going to remember it, and they're going to associate that story with you. For instance, I know we're going to talk about B2B, B2C.
Right.
The Super Bowl of advertising is almost as important as the Super Bowl that's played on the football field, right? And in
Oh,
the
yeah.
United States, several weeks ago, we just came through that, right?
Right.
Well, the commercials, here's something interesting, Jay. Research comes out every year. There was another story came out this year. Most people really enjoy the commercials, but they can't remember what storyline in the commercial goes with what product.
Ah,
So to me, as a storyteller, that's a failure,
right. Right.
because the story might have been unique. It might have been really funny. Like there was one for Chevy Silverado this year, 2022, and it was a cat, a guy and his cat.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Cat
yeah.
was doing everything that a dog does. It was sniffing. It rescued somebody who was buried in snow.
Yes.
You know,
I
and
remember.
the Silverado didn't show up until the last frame of the commercial,
Right.
where the guy who's buried in the snow is saved by the cat, and it's like, I've never seen a cat do that before.
Right.
And I've never seen that before. And the guy's standing in front of the truck and he says, "Oh, you mean a Chevy Silverado, blah, blah, blah." And the guy says, "No, a cat." And cat's owner says, "Why is everybody so excited about the cat? He's just a
Right.
cat," right?
Right.
Okay, I remember the commercial probably better than most of the people
Right.
who are with us today. And that to me is an epic failure, right? That's
Right.
not good storytelling. So
Right.
you want to be unique, compelling, and memorable. And you want people to say, "Oh, yeah, Jay is this great coach. And he always talks about, the four legs of the stool, and they are, right? The emotional, spiritual, mental, physical, right?
Right. Right.
And that's a great story. Jay, I remember your story because
Mhm.
you paint a great picture there with that concept of the chair, right? And so, folks, if you're with us today, this is what we're talking about in terms of uncovering and developing and then sharing your great story.
Okay, so I want to go. I want to just stay here at the Super Bowl for a second, because I don't remember which Super Bowl it is, but there is one commercial that has stayed with me the whole time, and it is the Bears out on the snow trying to open up a Coke bottle,
Yeah, yeah, that's the Coke campaign. Yeah,
right? And I remember
polar bears. Yeah,
the little polar bear, right? And the little polar bear, they were struggling to get it, and I guess I don't remember if it's a parrot or what the bird was, but it uses the beak to open up the bottle.
yes,
And then they used a cap to make the nose of the snowman.
that's right. Yeah,
Coke.
great memory.
And I remember that because it told this little story,
Yeah,
but the Coke was in it the whole time, right?
yes,
Would
yes,
that be an example of a good way to tell a story, or just
yeah,
is it
yeah.
because I have a good memory for
And
that?
actually, Jay, if you want to kind of segue into the B2B versus B2C, that's really a great example.
Okay, how about if we do the pillars first?
Yeah, let's do that.
let's do the pillars. So let's talk about the pillars of the capital S story.
Yep.
And you've got these pillars, and they're beautiful, by the way. There are 5 basic pillars.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about market position.
Yeah.
Why is market position? What is this, and why is it such a pillar?
So again, as I said a minute ago, we all live in an environment where somebody's competing for our attention. And most specifically, if you're a business leader, a business owner, somebody who's responsible for driving organizational results, you need to know where you stand compared to everybody else. And that's your market position. A lot of times when we start working with somebody, they'll say to us, we're the leader in our category. And so we go out and do a little research, and we'll say, well, what about XYZ company? They claim to have twice as much, business as you do.
Right.
Oh, I forgot about them.
Right.
Or, I didn't realize that. So you really need to know where you stand. We worked with a company some time ago, and they said, we only have a 5% market share. Guess what, Jay? That made them the leader, but they didn't know that.
Wow.
So it can go a number of different ways, but you really need to know, where do you stand in the marketplace of ideas that you're competing in?
Right. Right. Okay. How about competition?
Well, yeah, and that really relates to, now I just talked about who else is competing for the attention of the people you want to reach. Guess what? A lot of times, depending upon your product or service, there are people who say, I'm going to do nothing. Your competition is doing nothing.
Got it.
And far too many organizations don't consider that as a kind of a competitor. You need to say to yourself, okay, here's my beautiful idea, my great concept, my product or service. Gee, I never really thought about, how do I get somebody who's not going to do anything with this to do something with me? How am I going to move their minds and their hearts and inspire them to take action, right? So that's also critically important, just as what I said a couple minutes ago about what are your competitors saying and doing.
Right. Okay. How about the audience? That's a 3rd pillar.
The audience is critically important. A lot of times we'll work with leaders of an organization, and they'll say, I know what our customers want. They want this. And then we'll say, okay, that's great. Let's go out and ask some of your customers what they want.
Right.
And we do. When we come back and we say, Jay, we talked to your customers and they say they want something different. And it's a shock. People would say, really?
Right.
And, in fairness, a lot of times, like if a CEO of a company goes to a customer and says, what do you like about what we do? Don't you like this thing I'm in love with? The customer usually says, oh, yeah, Paul, I love that thing you do. But when somebody who doesn't work for the CEO or the company or the organization asks them, you get a different answer.
Yeah.
And that's why it's critically important.
Yeah. We've had guests on the show who talk about that so oftentimes, that businesses think that they know their customer until they ask their customer, and then they find out they really don't know their customer at all.
They don't. Yeah.
They really don't know them. They don't know what they really want. All right. So the 4th pillar is segments.
Yes. And what that means is, no organization, no company is all things to all people, right?
Right.
Now, okay, if you make paper towels or, tissues or some other paper product, everybody uses those. So there are some rare exceptions. However, generally speaking, you need to know who really needs what you do, whether it's a product or a service. And then you need to take that a step further and understand what in the marketing world we call segments, right? So there's a couple of ways that cuts. One is there's probably people out there who need what you do that you never thought of. And that's one of the things that we tease out in our storytelling process. And at the same time, and this is especially true in B2B, there's more than one decision maker in the process. In business to business decisions, there's typically a committee. There's the person who signs the check. There's the person who needs what you do, and it's often not the same person.
Right.
And then there's the person who's the internal technical expert, and their job is to make sure you never get hired. You need to understand, one of my favorite sales gurus, Tom Searcy, who wrote a book called Whale Hunting. He calls them the eel in the room, right? So if you're going to really share your story, you not only need to share it with the person who needs what you do, you need to share it with the person who's going to sign the check, or else you're not going to be hired. And you need to share that story in a way that the eel in the room is completely neutralized. That's segmentation.
Got it. Okay, so you have one more pillar here, and it's interesting because we started with market position, but then you go to market share.
Yes.
Help us understand the difference and why that's a pillar.
So a few minutes ago, I mentioned the company that had a 5% market share, and it turned out that they were a leader. So that was it. A lot of times people will say, we're the leader in the market, but they really aren't in terms of share. That is also their position. If you position yourself, you say, you need to work with us, Jay, because we're the market leader. And Jay has done his research, and he says, you're not the market leader. I looked around. Then all of a sudden you look like you either don't know what's going on, a fool, or you sound like a liar. And nobody wants to be either one of those things when they're trying to persuade people, move their hearts and minds to get them to take action, to engage with them, right? So the first one is positioning. It's we're the innovator, we're the leader in the market, we have the best ideas, we have the best customer experience, which, by the way, the most common thing that people say is, we have the best customer service in our industry. And if 90% of the people are saying that, and our process usually turns that up. Look, here's your 5 competitors. You all say that the reason you're hired is you have the best customer service. Then that's not a differentiator. That's not a great thing. And the market share it's like exercise, Jay. It's like, I say I want to run a marathon. Well, I need to know how far I can run today if I'm going to set the goal of running a marathon. So I need to know what my market share is today. If I want to double my market share, what am I doubling? Am I going from 1% to 2%? Am I going from 5 to 10?
Right. What is that? What is that number?
Exactly. It's critical.
His name is Paul Furiga. The book, Finding Your Capital S Story. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. So let me tell you about my sponsors. So I've had a number of surgeries or I've had injuries. And here's the thing. When you walk into Epic Physical Therapy, I'll just give you the picture here if I can. You walk into Epic Physical Therapy, first thing is they know your name. And they know your history, right? And so then you meet your physical therapist who is certified. And they know your history. And they go over your goals of what you want to accomplish at the end of your physical therapy. It's personalized and it's made for you. And it's a lot of security, meaning that I am not into some, therapeutic box. The program that they're designing is for me and to meet my goals. That's why they say, when you want epic relief, when you want epic recovery, and you want epic results, you go to Epic Physical Therapy. You can learn more. Tell your story at epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors. In 1985, Linda Craft started her business. Interest rates were 18%. The inflation rate was off the chart at the time. And it was a terribly difficult market. And no one probably should start their business during that time. She did. And since 1985, in 36 years, she has experienced every type of market. She's been through recessions. She's been through bad markets, good markets, hurricane markets. Whatever the markets are, she's been through them. By the way, that's a lot of confidence for you because she knows how to handle things in a market, whether that's negotiations, whether it's selling a house or buying a house or finding a house, whatever it may be in the real estate world, she's been in that market and she's been successful in every single market, which is why she's run for 36 years. So listen, when you're ready for your sold sign or your next home, start with Linda Craft and Team Realtors. That's lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction, and we're with my friend Paul Furiga, Finding Your Capital S Story. Awesome. And we are story crafting right now, and we have just gone through the first part of the story crafting. We've done the fundamentals, the 5 burning questions. We've talked about the pillars. So once we have a good event, now we've got to identify story archetypes.
Yes.
is what you talk about, right? And in the book, by the way, in the book, you actually have the wheel.
Yes,
The
an archetype wheel. Yes.
archetype wheel, and that people can help do that. So let's talk about finding our archetype. How do we do that? Is it something that we can do? Do we need your help?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and certainly, there's a level of do it yourself in anything, right? Some people can read the book, and they got it, and obviously there's benefits too to working with an organization like ours, where we've done this dozens of times,
Right.
and we're experts at it. Like, I wouldn't do brain surgery on myself.
No.
First of all, it'd be physically awkward, and secondly, I probably wouldn't be very good at it.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, but people have to make their own choices. You can do a lot of the thinking about this on your own and tease things out. So, the point about archetypes is this: there's the wheel that's in the book. There's 12 commonly accepted families or archetypes that you'll find in literature, pop culture, business, marketing. They have a variety of names. Generally, they follow these patterns: magician or sage, navigator or explorer, outlaw or hero, innocent or ingenue, caregiver or romantic. I'm giving you one word each for the different kinds of archetypes. And what you want to do is, once you have gone through the pillars and uncovered what we call the story fundamentals, Jay, you want to take this raw material we talked about before the break and say, okay, now let's think about how people interact with me or with our organization, and look at these archetypes. What of these fits with us?
Okay.
And sometimes what we'll do is we'll talk to a client's customers and we'll ask them. And that's where, it's sometimes helpful to work with an organization like ours, because we're not going to go to somebody and say, hey, that Jay guy, is he an outlaw or is he a magician? What we're going to say is, when you think about working with Jay, do you see that he's the kind of resource that can guide you down a path, help you understand deeper truths about yourself? Or do you see him as being the kind of person that gives you ideas that you never thought about before, outside the box things? And so what I just did, Jay, there is I gave you an example of describing somebody who's a sage,
Right.
and describing somebody who's an outlaw.
Right. Which I hope people think both of those things about me.
Well, Jay, that is a really important point. And just very quickly, there's actually hundreds of archetypes out there that are combinations of more than one archetype family. It is common and good. This is how you become unique, if you have aspects of more than one in your story.
Right. Yeah, I love these archetypes because, and I think it's really important. And you made a point earlier. It's so important that you cannot ask that question of your customers, because it's already biased.
Yes.
Once you ask that question, because you really do need a third party.
Yes.
To source those, to source that out, because you're going to get a more honest answer.
Exactly right.
And
exactly right.
and you want that, and
Yes.
you really do, because then it leads into the next part, that now we're going to try to share our story, but if our story is not rooted in authenticity,
yes,
right, because we've taken a biased approach. Well, I asked my customers, this is what they told me. Well, you've lost your authenticity at that point,
and you're going to wind up wasting your time, your money, and your effort focusing on sharing a story that's not going to get you the results you want.
Right. And then we move to that. And we talked in the last episode, we talked a lot about authenticity, and we talked a little bit about those fluent storytellers.
Right.
But you may not be, as an owner or CEO or founder or whatever,
leader, right? Yeah.
You may not be the best storyteller.
Correct.
So how do we identify who is?
So in the process of working with clients, we just talked about how you identify the archetype. Usually the way that happens is it's just very natural. People will start telling stories. Well, I think we're a caregiver because we had this client come in, and Susie who handles intake did X, Y, and Z. And then we'll say, well, wait a minute, Susie, tell us more about Susie. Oh, Susie's the face to every client that comes into this organization. People love her. They buy her flowers for her birthday. She remembers their birthdays, sends cards. Okay. All right, Mr. CEO or Ms. CEO, you're a wonderful person. But if you're telling me that when you think about, and when your clients or customers think about your organization, they see Susie's face, maybe Susie's the fluent storyteller here and not you. And so, Jay, you see this a lot in healthcare organizations, and I might have mentioned this in the last episode. If I have a serious health need, I am not going to pick the hospital I choose by reading the bio of the CEO. I'm going to want to know, who are my caregivers?
Right.
What's the doctor like?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I get so lost in this whole thing because it's because what happens is, you start, if people are listening, like I'm listening, because I'm listening to you and I'm applying it back to my own business.
Right.
And I'm thinking about, okay, well, man, I've got to rethink this a little bit more, right? Because you think you're doing a pretty good job. I'm sure that people out there are listening to this going, well, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. But then you start thinking through this and you think through these pieces and you go, well, I could be doing a lot better job at doing this. And am I really the right storyteller for this? And if not me, who? And then that becomes, it's some deep, you got to give those questions some deeper thought.
Yes. Because
it just goes beyond that. Okay. So the next piece, of course, is reading the audience.
Yes.
You talk about, this is what you say. I'm just going to quote you. It's just easier.
Sure.
You must conceptually define the type of performance measures and standards of success that are relevant to marketing activities for your organization. So just expand that out and help us out there.
Right. So a lot of times we started as more of what I'll call a pure PR firm, and there's so many misconceptions about that field of marketing. People will say all PR is good PR, for instance.
Right.
Well, you know what? Years ago, I never saw Enron's name misspelled, but that didn't mean that all the bad PR they got was good PR, right?
Right.
So like just being on the news or just being on social media,
right.
So what? And speaking of social media, there's so many, they call them vanity metrics. It's like, look how many clicks you got. And when I speak, Jay, I use this commercial from Adobe, the software company. And it's really a funny little commercial for a B2B company. And it's an encyclopedia company. And all of a sudden, they keep getting all these orders for new printed encyclopedias. And so the whole commercial just shows them printing the books, cutting down trees, shipping them on boats and everything. And then the last thing you see is it's a little baby in diapers, and he has mom's iPad, and he's clicking the buy now button on the encyclopedia website like a million times. So he's like buying all these books, right? So, I mean, the point on that is you really need to understand how engaged your audience is.
Right.
It's a two-way conversation these days. A lot of the way this interview and this episode is being consumed is on various social media platforms.
Right.
Guess what? You can have a conversation there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Respond to what the direction they give you to make sure you're keeping them engaged.
Yeah. I mean, matter of fact, I'm going to give a shout out to Harrison from Team Unstoppable, who's listening in, and Masai, who's listening in, and just give a couple of those shout outs right now. I know that they're live of listening in. So thanks for joining us. We know we have a lot of choices, and thank you for being with here. And by the way, if you have any questions, shoot them to us. I bet Paul will be happy to answer them. I know he will be. So then what happens is we get to phase 2.
Yes.
And phase 2, the greatest story ever shared, yours, is the phase 2 story. And you make a quote on page 127 of the book that says, too many marketing or public relations campaigns begin at the level of tactical execution.
Yes.
How many press releases, what kind of events, etc., without first determining the story to be shared. And you go on to say, once you've developed your capital S story, then every strategy, tactic, and activity selected should further that story.
Yes, exactly. So think about it this way, Jay. I could wake up one morning and say, I want to go to California. And I mean, I'm not just gonna jump in my car, not check to see if I have enough gas, not know which way I'm going, right? So a lot of times in the marketing field, folks have so many preconceived notions about what's going to work for them, right? I was speaking with somebody earlier today, and I've had prospects in the past say, "Yeah, I want a Facebook page." Okay, why? I don't know. I just think I should have a Facebook page. Well, you got to figure that out before you start doing this, and that's where once you know what your story is,
right,
and the part we just talked about, how do I keep my audience engaged? It's like, well, where is your audience?
Right.
Like, are they on TikTok?
Right.
Do they go to trade shows?
Right.
Do they like webinars?
Right.
Until you know these things, how can you make a plan to reach them? And why bother to spend all this money on stuff? Years ago, I wrote a blog post. The headline was, "I need a brochure, or do I?" And the whole point of it was, in the old days, and WordWrite is 20 years old this month, Jay. So
congratulations.
Thank you. In the old days, I'd go visit people in person back when we did that, and it'd be winter, and I'd open the closet and hang up my coat, and there'd be this boxes with all these brochures in there. And these were the brochures that marketing made that nobody wanted, and they spent so much money on them that they couldn't bear to throw them away. But there they sat in the closet, alone, forlorn, unwanted, unloved, and most critically, unused. We don't want to. I mean, I don't think anybody who's with us today wants to be spending money on something when they don't know what the ROI is. Do it.
No, and we confuse what ROI is.
We do, yes.
Right? Because, and you said it, we'll talk about this more in social media, I'm sure, but, having written several books and articles and social media, one of the things that I keep reminding people is that your likes cannot even pay for a cup of coffee.
Exactly.
I don't care how many likes you have. I want you to bring all your likes to a Starbucks, and I want you to tell them, I'm exchanging this for a latte, and see how that goes for you.
Exactly.
Right? Right?
It's not. That's a classic vanity metric,
I say it, yeah.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. Now, it doesn't mean that you may not be having some influence. I can tell you that, right? But so does branding.
Yes.
Right? I can't measure branding so much, but I'm sure it has some sort of influence. I just can't measure what that really is.
Right.
And it's hard. Right. I mean, oh boy, here we go. So Gary Vaynerchuk had said one time, social media is like social media ROI is like measuring your relationship with your grandmother. Right? I mean, it's like, okay, you really love her, right? But what does that really get you? Right? Except that you have this relationship with your grandmother. And this is where we got to be careful on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and even LinkedIn and TikTok now and all these other platforms.
YouTube,
right? Is that you're not measuring what you think you're measuring.
Exactly. Yeah.
It just isn't. So let's move to chapter 7.
Yes.
And chapter 7 asks a question. I don't know that I've ever, in all the books I've read, right? And I've read close to, I don't know, this is our 4th year. So I'm going on 200 books because I read a book a week. So I don't know that I've ever had a chapter where the chapter was a question.
Really?
I don't think so. I really don't. I couldn't think of one. I was trying to think of one. So the question that you ask, and it's the title of chapter 7, if you're selling B2B or B2C, do you share your story differently? So answer the question.
Well, it's a real short answer, which we'll expand upon, and that is yes.
Awesome.
Yes, you definitely share your story differently if you're selling something for broad-based consumers versus B2B. And there are a number of reasons for that. Some context first, just real quick. again, back like to the Super Bowl. And we work at our firm primarily with B2B companies that provide complex services. So think healthcare technology, professional service firms. I mean, these are organizations run by very smart people who are not natural communicators. So they need help sharing their story in a way that people who aren't experts get it. But if I'm going to buy toothpaste, what kind of a story do I need? I mean, if you go down the aisle at your local superstore or pharmacy, just look how many darn kinds of toothpaste there are. And so one of the things about B2C stories is that a lot of times you don't really need a story. Let's face it, Procter & Gamble spends more on advertising than any other company in the world, and they have dozens of brands of toothpaste. I don't think any rational human being could be administered a scientifically valid test and name like more than one or two of them, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. Here's the problem, though. Back to the Super Bowl. Even when you're selling something complex, far too often, what happens is you are looking at TV commercials for broad-based consumer products and saying, well, I need to sell my stuff that way. And that is not true.
Right.
Your need for storytelling, if you're selling something complex, is much greater than the person who's selling the tube of toothpaste. Another reason why this is true, with the exception of houses and cars and expensive electronic equipment, some brands of clothing, I myself can get on Amazon or any other website and solely make a decision to buy a $2 piece of whatever, a tube of toothpaste, a tumbler, a coffee mug. But Jay, if I'm selling a $2 billion piece of equipment, there aren't many people in the world that can do that by themselves. They're probably inside a company, and now you got the CEO or the CFO signing the check. You got the technical expert who's going to use the equipment. You got the purchasing agent. Now you got to tell a story to many different people, and there's a lot more on the line. If I decide to buy the cheapest price of my favorite branded toothpaste, I can go on the internet right now. I can go to Amazon, Target, Walmart, wherever, and I can say, look at that. It's 50 cents cheaper here. I'm going to buy it there. Boom, done. But you don't have that kind of conversation when you're selling something really complex. Legal services. How the hell do you tell one lawyer apart from another without knowing the story? I mean, lawyers are licensed.
Right.
It's a table stake.
Right.
You know, if you're talking to a lawyer, they have to have a license. So that means they're smart enough to be a lawyer. Now what? Now how do you decide, right? So there needs to be much more story there when it's a more complex situation.
I love that. His name is Paul Furiga. Isn't he really good? I'm just telling you, he's just really good. The book, Finding Your Capital S Story, Why Your Story Drives Your Brand. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Listen, I have been going to Epic Physical Therapy for years and years. I know the owners, Heidi and Andrew. They're terrific people. I knew them before they owned Epic Physical Therapy. And I have to tell you something. They've added their own personal touch to it because it's why they make you feel so warm and welcome and why they're so encouraging. You know, every time you walk in there and you're working on your physical therapy and you're working with your certified therapist, you just feel like you're part of the family. And that's what it makes me feel like every time I'm there. And I know that they're going to make you feel the same way. And they work with everybody like me to professional athletes, and they treat everyone exactly the same. And it's really awesome. So when you're ready for your epic recovery, your epic relief, your epic results, to start with epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Kraft and Team Realtors. Listen, I want to tell you something about Linda Kraft. Do you know every Thanksgiving, she buys nearly 800 pies that have to be made fresh and gives them out to her customers every Thanksgiving. Done it for years. It's amazing. They bring in these pallets of apple and pumpkin pies, and people come in, and she just gives them out to her clients. And part of the reason is because she wants to see them face to face, because it's that important to say thank you. It's pretty special and it's pretty rare. And so I think that's what makes her, another reason what makes her really different is that she takes these little things and turns them into big opportunities to say thank you and hello. And I don't know what that says, but it says something that, people are that important. And so when you're ready to sell your home or buy your home, why not start with someone who I can promise you believes that you are really important. Start with Linda Craft, Team Realtors. That's LINDACRAFT.com, lindacraft.com. And we're back here on A New Direction. And I'm with my friend. I've said friend now like 4 times.
I like that. That's good.
I love my son, Paul Furiga. We're going to be. I got a feeling we're going to be long friends after this because I could see us doing that. So we're in chapter 7, B2B, B2C. You talked about that 70% of businesses are B2C, 30% are B2B. The kind of story that you've already alluded to it, that's going to be different. You talk about something called the consumer storytelling conundrum.
Yes.
Unless you bring to life the story behind the commoditized consumer product or service you provide, you leave your company to decision made based upon boring table stakes, such as your competence, location, or price. Is that enough for you? Do you have to be a great marketing differentiator? It's a great question.
Yeah. And of course, when you write a book, you get to ask lots of trick questions, right, Jay? So yeah, my answer is no, it's really not enough. And, in this chapter of the book, I give 2 really great examples. One is the company called Tom's, which used to be called Tom's Shoes,
Right.
which not only sells great shoes, but had this very unique value proposition, which I describe in the book, has been copied dozens and dozens of times. For every pair or 2 of you bought shoes from Tom's, they would donate a pair of shoes to somebody in an underdeveloped country who needed shoes.
Right.
Oh, wow. I mean, now that is a purpose bigger than I just want to make money off of you.
Right.
And then the other example, talking about toothpaste like we did before, talked about Tom's of Maine, which began actually, I think their first product was baking soda. I have the story in the book. But regardless, they became famous for their baking soda toothpaste, right?
Right.
Which was all natural. And, that for them, it was all about the environment and natural products. And that was the bigger mission there. And so those are 2 examples of consumer focused companies that have understood that a great way to differentiate yourself in the marketplace when there's just so many choices and so much confusion is to have a story bigger than the products you're selling.
Yeah. The Tom's and Tom's story
is I know it's confusing, but
it's neat though, because it is a neat story. It's a neat backstory to the product, right? And to the people who who basically found the product. And I think that's what people got to grasp onto, that that those backstories are maybe what you're missing here. Now, you talk about in a section here called the deep arc of B2B storytelling. You said the challenge for B2B companies, you talked about this a little bit, is to create differentiation by peeling back the complexity in products and services.
Yes.
And you talked about that a little bit. Is there something we need to add there, like in terms of B2B, to help the B2B marketers out when we're talking about that piece of it?
Yes. So, a part of it is what we've hinted at already, which is understanding that your product or service, no matter how great it is, in order for it to be purchased, you're going to need to communicate your value proposition to people who may not even understand how it works. And so you need to simplify that story. And that's the peeling back part of it, Jay.
Okay.
It's getting to the essence of, rather than talking about, I kind of hate this term, but it's been used so long in B2B sales. Get past the features and benefits, the bullet points on the slide, the bullets in the, slick brochure, which is the way a lot of folks used to sell, and really talk about what does your service or what does your product do for me?
Right.
And tell a story, right?
Right.
The capital S story can have many chapters, and one of those chapters for you can be, tell me how a specific kind of client or customer uses my service or product. Give me an example. Bring this to life. Don't just give me the specs. That's a table stake.
Right. Right. So I mean, I guess if we're gonna tell this story, then are we telling it then from the client perspective? Is that what we're trying to tell it from, or?
Well, yes. I mean, so every organization has multiple stakeholders, and that's why the question that we ask at our firm all the time is, why would somebody buy from you? Also work for you or invest in you might be relevant, or partner with you, right?
Right.
And so what you're trying to do is tell, I would describe it as a comprehensive story. And in the book, I give this example about this company we worked with some years ago. They made fake nuclear medicine equipment. Now, a lot of times for diagnostic and treatment reasons, people need to be exposed to radiation from nuclear medicine. It's a simple question. Would you like, if you have to have this sort of treatment or procedure done, to be working with somebody who knows how to work the equipment or not? Well, of course we would. So how do those people practice?
Right.
How about building equipment that doesn't really work, that simulates everything that could go wrong, right?
Right, because I don't want to expose everybody to radiation.
Right, exactly.
But you need to know how to make the equipment work.
Right. So this is a perfect example of what we're talking about with B2B storytelling. Because in the first place, if you just walk in the door and say, "Hi, Mr. Hospital Purchasing Agent, how'd you like to buy a multi-million-dollar piece of nuclear medicine equipment that's just the same as the one down the hall right now, except it doesn't work. It can't kill anybody by accident." They'd be like, "Get out of here."
Right.
But if you tell a story and say, "Mr. Hospital Purchasing Agent, one of the greatest fears in your organization is that somebody accidentally causes somebody harm with nuclear medicine. What if there was a way to prevent that from happening?" And that would be chapter 1 of this B2B story that you're peeling back. Because first of all, you have to educate the person. This is a problem that I thought was unsolvable. Oh, wait a minute, it's solvable? Tell me more. And then chapter 2 is, here's our equipment.
Right.
Chapter 3 is, here's how you can use it. Chapter 4 is, look at the great results you get. And when I say chapters, I'm not talking about 100-page. I'm like, you have to share. Great stories are, not, people don't say, "And here's the end. Let me tell the end before we begin." They bring you through the narrative, right? So people have to understand.
And so let me ask you this then. Is part of that story then, in your example, is part of the story telling them how this piece of equipment is going to reduce your liability and save you millions of dollars?
Yes. It's part of the story, Jay, but there's a pretty famous method of sales training that probably some of the audience have been through. It's Sandler's sales training. Sales training is great, but they have this statement about sales that applies to storytelling as well. It's like, don't spill your candy in the lobby. And what they mean by that is, like, when you go to the movies, and you were a kid, right? And mom or dad gives you the box of candy and they're like, "Don't open it yet." And the kid's so damn excited, they just spill the candy all over the lobby. Oh, well, now you got to buy another box of candy. Well, when you're telling your story, and especially telling your story to sell your services, don't spill your candy in the lobby.
Right.
Dole it out. Tell your story piece by piece. Let people, back to the 3 principles: authenticity, fluent storytellers, and engagement. Make sure your audience is with me. You never want somebody to say to you, "I don't understand a damn thing you said."
Right. And this probably leads us into chapter 8, which we're going to run out of time for, but but the truth is, it really does mean, because we're telling our story in bits and pieces, we're not telling the whole story.
Yes.
It's why probably social media is made for storytelling.
It really is. And Jay, that's a great point. And chapter 8, like you said, we don't have a lot of time to discuss it, but just so people understand, it's the opposite of what you think, folks. social media is a great way to tell stories. And some of the platforms that you might think would be the worst, like Twitter, used to be 140 characters, now it's 280. It is common, just even today, in preparing for our time together, Jay, I'm looking at how many people use long Twitter threads to tell their story.
Right.
And I have an example in a book. Scientist, it wasn't even his core area of science, but he likes foxes, and he couldn't sleep one night. And so he was bored, so he got on Twitter and he started doing my favorite foxes in the world. And before you knew it, like, he had hundreds of thousands of people liking his tweets, about weird looking foxes and, ones that had unusual longevity or whatever. And I mean, magazine articles were written about him. He got put on TV. I mean, what a great example of storytelling about something that you wouldn't think that people would normally really like, right? But the point is, social media is all about conversation. And I ask you, Jay, what is a great story, well told, if not a conversation? Because you want the audience involved. And if people are responding to and engaging, that's exactly what you want.
That's beautiful. Listen, we're out of time. We've done our hour already.
We did it again, Jay.
We did it again. But you know what? It's been great. Tell people how to get a hold of you so that they can reach you and contact you. And if they've got questions, or maybe, how about better yet, maybe people want to say, you know what, you're right. I need to do this storytelling thing. How can I be a part of what you're doing? Help give them the way to connect with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jay. So folks, if you want to reach out to us, www.capitalsstory.com. That will take you to a landing page. You can download a sample chapter of the book, and there are links there to a lot of other resources. Like Jay said, you can explore this concept. Our firm is called WordWrite, and if you go to wordwritepr.com/storycrafting, you'll find even more resources to allow you to learn more about what we talked about.
It's awesome. His name's Paul Furiga. The book, Finding Your Capital S Story, Why Your Story Drives Your Brand. Folks, that's the show. You know what I say to you every week, right? You're in control of two things in your life, and that is your attitude and your effort. Doesn't matter what the circumstances are. You may not control those, but you can control how you respond to those and the effort you give in them. I'm going to be back next week with another great guest. It's going to be another great show. And as I say to you every week, and you know what that is, ciao, everybody.